Today, we're going to talk about all things money. Whether money makes you really anxious or you have a great relationship with it, today is the podcast for you. I'm going to give you tips and tricks to maximize your income, decrease your expenses, how to buy things you love versus things you don't even remember you bought at the end of the month, and ways to improve your credit score, and so much more. So, wherever you're at with money, this is the podcast for you. I've got a question for you. Who is the person you're being? Are you satisfied? It's okay. This is a judge free zone, and it's exactly why I started the show. Welcome to Be the Person, a podcast for the brave and the curious who are ready to explore who they are fully created to be. I'm your host, Annie Randall, the adventurous one leading this investigative journey of transformation. By delving into topics and asking unexpected questions, we will discover the keys for unlocking our true potential and being our best selves today. You may be surprised by what you find when you let go of fear in order to discover the answers of becoming the person you were made to be. Welcome to Be the Person podcast. My name is Annie, and I'll be your host today. We're going to talk about all things money. And I know money can be one of those things that greatly can affect your health, either positive or negative. There can be a lot of stress with money that can negatively impact your health. And I will tell you, I am not a certified financial planner, but I have read hundreds of books on this topic about investing, personal finance, all things. And my background is I have a degree in economics and I have my MBA. But when Jeff and I moved to the Denver area about 26 years ago, we showed up, we lived with my brother, we had about $100 to our name, and we didn't have jobs or anything. So we went from that to over the next 26 years, investing in several real estate deals, starting multiple businesses. And money for me wasn't really about, oh my gosh, I need X amount of dollars. It really equated to freedom. If I had money, I could set my own schedule. I could make our own business and we could do what we wanted. And that has always been my goal. I remember one of the days we were living with my brother, we were newly married, and we were out on a walk. And we lived in a suburb of Denver. And at the time, houses were, I don't know, maybe $150,000, much cheaper than they were today. But there was a young couple out there washing their car, and they had this house and they had two cars. And at the time, it seemed very unrealistic to us to ever get there. So if you're sitting there thinking, I don't know how I'm ever going to accumulate anything, or that's a dream that is for somebody else, I will tell you, I don't think it has to be. I think everyone can be good with money. And it's sad because I don't think a lot of us are taught a lot about money. I always say after I retire, I'm going to go and teach personal finance in high schools because I think everybody should have a basis of money. And I was lucky that my dad always taught us really how important it was to save and live within our means. So I know that we all come with some beliefs, some good and some bad about money. And also we had people that some of us that taught us, and others, we didn't have anyone. So we just never learned about it other than what we probably saw our parents do. And, that was a great lesson that my dad taught me. And I'm super grateful for that. But somewhere along the line, it flipped in my brain to a scarcity mentality of, oh my gosh, we need to keep saving. Are we ever going to have enough? If we give it away, would we have enough? And I at some point recognize this. And I don't think I'm the only one out there that has this mentality because I'm part of a ladies group. And when I ask the ladies, like, hey, what questions do you want to know about money? That was one of them that came up. How do I go from a scarcity mindset to an abundant mindset? And I will tell you, that has been a journey for me. I'm married to one of the most generous people I think there are. Jeff has always been super generous. And that's something that when I die, I want people to say about me, but it hasn't come naturally. But it's still a core value and super important. And so I will say it's been the shift in mentality. Again, not because of how much money I wanted to accumulate, it's a mindset. And so wherever you're coming from, um, I understand that money can be a tricky subject. For me, that has been a constant reminder. I had to go with a little card in my purse because I not only wanted an abundance mindset for money, I wanted it for life. I didn't want to live life in a scarcity mindset. I wanted to live out of abundance. So I had a little card in my purse that would remind me about that every day for several years. The other thing we did to switch that around was we created a separate account. We call it a charity account, and the first 10% of our money goes in that account. Because in the Bible, it's the only place God says to test me. In Malachi 3:10, it says, test me and give first your 10%, and I'll open the floodgates. And so again, wanting to be generous, that was something that was important to us that we decided to do. But you'll see later on when I give you some tips and tricks of money, I think having separate accounts is one of the best things you can do. Then to me, it was like giving away somebody else's money. And that is super fun. But if it comes out of your main account, that was always tricky for me. So as I worked towards that, that was one of the things that we did together. Um, but I know it can be hard because in 2020 or 2008, excuse me, I worked for US Bank. And in 2020, we had COVID hit. The first thing in 2008, um, the financial recession came about. And our business at US Bank took a big hit in the department we were in. So we lost a lot of our income and we had trips scheduled to go on as reward trips. Those got pulled. Almost like it reinforced that scarcity mindset. But on the other side, we came out of that okay. Same thing in 2020 when we had to close down our businesses. Again, I was thankful for those lessons in saving, but what came out of it was great opportunity. And it also came with, again, having to reset that scarcity to abundance mindset. So you may be there now thinking, that's me. I have that scarcity mindset, or I have that abundance mindset. Whichever one you have, make sure it's the one you want. And just being able to choose that and know that we can change that. It is something we can change. So as we jump in here, I know there's a lot of emotion around money. And we're going to just try and take that out today. Money isn't good or bad. It just amplifies characteristics in people. So if you were good before and you make a lot of money, I believe you're going to be a generous person. If you were a jerk before and you make a lot of money, you're probably more of a jerk. But some of us have the mindset of, oh my gosh, I'm terrible with money. Well, but nobody ever taught you. So let's take this as our first lesson today and just say, you know what? I didn't know what I didn't know. And I'm going to start to learn today and be better with money because there's some basic lessons that we can learn to really help all of us. And I know because I've learned them and now I have 3 teenagers and I'm really trying to teach our teenagers all about money, especially in a world that doesn't teach them that. I think it's super important. So you may want to share this with other people in your life. If you have teenagers or other people that have struggled with money, definitely send it to them. But let's jump in and let's look. There's really four areas when we think about money. It's your income, your saving, your spending, and your investing. And we're going to look at the first three today. I'm going to wait and do a separate podcast on investing and really how do you build wealth, but we'll take that out for today. Dave Ramsey says that anyone can be a millionaire, and typically it takes people about 17 years. So know that it's a process. It's not a get rich quick. And there will be several steps today. Some of them you'll do as take home for your homework that you'll need to do. In fact, I went and did all of these this weekend as I was getting ready for this, just to go over. I know our numbers, but I didn't have a spreadsheet over the past year. And it was really great. So even if this is something where you feel like I'm living within my means, it was a really good exercise to know how much money do we have coming in and where is that money going? And that's the first thing is to be financially successful, you have to live within your means. You have to know how much money you have coming in and how much you have going out. So when we do this, let's look first at how much do you have coming in. That's the income side of the equation. And it's pretty easy if you're a W-2 employee, you look at your take home. If you have a job that has commission or tips, it can be a little trickier, but I would just say let's average it over the past 3 months. What do you have coming in on average? And you'll want to look at all sources of income. If you have child support or alimony, if you have a second job, if you do a side hustle, something like that, look at all of the income you have coming in and list it out so you know that monthly number of income. The next thing you're going to want to do is know all of your expenses. So when I did this, I opened our bank account and we have one main account that typically all of our income comes into and our expenses go out of. And I just looked, and this is things like if you have a house payment, a car payment, insurance, your electric bill, water bill, all of those things are going to be set expenses. And you're going to want to make a spreadsheet and know what those are. The other thing is maybe you use a debit card and those all come out of there. You're going to want to lump them together so you can see how much do you spend on food. Or for us, this is on a credit card that we pay off monthly. So I went back to the last 3 months and just looked, what was our average for food? What was the average for eating out, for clothing, for entertainment? And I got those big categories and I put them in there. And then just looked at the total expenses overall that we had. Again, no judgment here, nothing. You're just getting your numbers. What do they look like today? And it's not that you're going to say, oh, I wish I wouldn't have spent that much money on eating out, or I wish I wouldn't have done that on entertainment. Just do it as it is today. What is the income side of the equation? And what is the expense side of the equation? At the end of the day, if you have a surplus, if you have more income than expenses, that's good. Some of you, my guess is it's the opposite. You have more expenses than you have income. Either way, we're going to try and maximize both sides. So let's talk income first. When we look at our income, what ways that you could increase that? Maybe it's at the job you're at today. You work part-time, but you could work full-time. Or you're on a commission and you could put in extra work to do more transactions. Maybe you're a set salaried employee and there's not room for movement there. So you may look at either a second job or some type of side hustle. I will tell you, since I've graduated from college, I've either had a separate company, worked a second job, had a side hustle, always. Part of it is just that's me and who I am. But I will tell you, it can be a great way to get ahead, especially accelerate some of your goals. And when if you're thinking about a side hustle, think about what do you really enjoy? What are you good at? What do you have certifications through? Maybe you're a great photographer, or you want to walk dogs because you're walking anyway. You want to pet sit. You have an extra room in your house that you could do on Airbnb. All of these are extra ways to make additional income, but we want to maximize the income side. And those are just a couple of ways to do that. My favorite company for clean protein is by far and away ButcherBox. Everything they sell is humanely raised, no antibiotics. You get to choose what comes in your box, whether it's beef, chicken, pork, seafood, and you get to choose all of the cuts you want as well as how often you want. It's shipped direct to your house, so every time I go to cook dinner, there's meat in my freezer. They're giving our audience $50 off the first box. See the link in the show notes. The other thing is the expense side. And when we go through here, I want you to look at all of your expenses. Guys, I was surprised because we don't eat out a lot as a family. Typically, it's on Saturdays, if anything. And I was surprised how fast that added up and how much money was in that category. And so when I look at it, of just, yes, those are important though to me because those are either date night or family dinners. But it was something that, again, just because of things and the price increases, I wouldn't have put it correctly in my budget if I didn't look at the actual numbers. So when we're looking at those, I want you to look at those. And again, this isn't the time to shame or cast judgment on yourself. The past is what it is. Let's just set up the future that you want. Let's spend money on the things you want. And I love Tiffany Aliche. She goes by Budget on Instagram. And she also has a Netflix documentary about Get Smart with Money. And she has 4 categories. And I really like these for spending. One, do you need it? Is it an essential? Like your electric bill or your food. Those are things that you need. Those go in the need category. Then, if you're buying something, do you love it? Will you remember it after a year? And there are some things like vacation, for example, for me, is one of the love it categories. I want great vacations for our family to make memories. Because again, we have teenagers. I know the number of years is limited to make those. So that's really important. That's on my love it category. And it's important. So it's not going anywhere. I'm going to budget for that. There's also things that you like. There's things that, you'll still remember in 6 months, but you don't love them. You could probably do without them and you wouldn't really think twice. And then there's another category of wanted. And I think especially right now with that shop or buy now button on Instagram or Facebook, or how readily things show up at our house through Amazon, which honestly sometimes can be a good thing because it keeps me out of Target. And I feel like sometimes I spend less money because I just get what we need. But it's also easy to do that and just click that button and really not think about it. So the wanted categories, the things like in a month that you're like, I don't even know what I bought. Those are the things that we want to really try and eliminate or minimize. I'll tell you one of the things I started to do about 3 months ago, and it's really worked well for me, is I won't let myself, if I see it and I hear about something and I look it up, I think, "Oh, that's great. I want that." I won't let myself buy it right away. If it's on Amazon, I will add it to the wish list so I can see it on there. And then if it's on social media, I'll either save the post or screenshot the post. And if I'm still thinking about it 3 days later, then I'll go back and buy it. But if I'm not, I will tell you 80% of the time, I forget what's even on there. I'm also a really big reader. And so a lot of times I will see books that I want. And I've been going to the library and just putting those on hold or requesting them. And that's been a really great thing. Now, sometimes I'll do that book through the library. I'll love it. And then I'll want to buy it just so I can highlight in it. And I do that with some books. But honestly, I have bookshelves that are overflowing. I have a closet that's full. I don't need any more sweaters or shoes or sweatpants. So when I buy them, I really want to make sure it's in the love it or at least like it category. So just something that you might take away to have that 3-day waiting period. We also do it with our kids because a lot of times now on social media, they'll see things, they'll want things. Great. Let's wait 3 days and let's revisit that. And again, about half the purchases then go away. But when you're looking at your categories and on your fixed bills, one of the things I do it every year. I honestly encourage our employees to do it every year is call the companies that, let's say you have internet with, you have your cell phone, you have insurance, all of those things, and just call and say, "Hey, is there another plan that gets me the same service? I'm trying to decrease my expenses. Is there a way to do that?" And I will tell you, probably 9 out of 10 times, there is a way. Now, it might only be $10 a month, and you're thinking $10, but the call probably took 5 minutes. And if you think about that $10 over 12 months, it's $120 a year. So those things add up and they can be really significant. So take time and just when you're making all of your expenses, take the time to call and just see what expenses can you lower. Then on your credit card or debit, however you're paying for all of the other things that you're buying, that's when you're going to want to say, "Oh my goodness, I spent $1,000 on fast food or whatever it is, and I ate out 3 times a week. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to eat out once a week. And I'm going to make the other part of my food at home. And this is how my budget will look." And you'll just put those numbers in there. And again, our goal is to minimize expenses, but also maximize life and joy. So I'm not asking you to cut out your love it expenses unless you really, really have a lot of debt to pay off. And that's your main goal. Otherwise, leave those things in. They're important, but we want to reduce all of our kind of nonsense spending that you don't remember at the end of the month. That's what you want to reduce. So now we have our list of our income that we want to maximize, and we've thought of ways we're going to do that. We have our budget and we've reduced our expenses. We're really paying attention to how much we're spending in each category. And what I will tell you is I'm always been a fan of separate accounts. And when I was listening to a couple of Tiffany's podcasts this weekend, she does this as well. So Jeff thinks I'm a little crazy for this because we have several bank accounts, but in my mind, it helps keep things separate. So let me tell you about mine, and then I'll tell you what she recommends too. So you have some different ideas. And you want to make sure these are free at the bank. I don't pay for any of our bank accounts. Typically, you can get different savings accounts for free. If you keep money in those, you're going to want to see what interest rate you can get. Because typically right now you can get between 4 and 5%. So it's not a ton of money, but it's still, again, better than zero. So my accounts that I keep for any business that we have, that's 100% separate. But these are personal accounts. So I have one that I do all of our spending out of. All of our bills come out of that. I pay our credit card. If where our income comes in, that's just a separate checking account that all the activity takes place in. Then I told you I have a separate account for giving, and we put money in there every month. And to me, that's fun to be able to give that away. If we see a need or we want to buy somebody something, we have that money set aside to be able to do that and also to tithe through our church. The third one I have is a tax account. Because again, if you're an entrepreneur or real estate agent, you know that you pay your business or taxes typically quarterly. It's not taken out of my check because I'm not a W 2 employee. So it's really important if you're a business owner, real estate agent, something like that, where you don't have a normal W 2, that you have a separate tax account. I don't ever have to worry at the end of the year, at the end of the quarter. I know that money's set aside. For me, I always take 40% out because I know it's going to be a little bit extra, but by the time I pay state and federal, and then if something comes up, I know I have that money, and that's important. And the last one is a savings account. And we'll have a savings account set up just for extra that we want to pull out that we're saving for something specific. Now, when Tiffany did hers were a little bit different, and yours could be a little bit different. One, she had her spending account, things that she pays for groceries with, um, bills, or not bills, excuse me, just groceries, your everyday spending, Target, if you eat out, that all went in one account. She had another account for bills, and it was things like car, house, insurance, everything that's a fixed bill. She had a separate account there. That way she knew how much money she had to spend. Her third account was an emergency fund account. So she was trying to build this up. Typically, you want at least 3 months in here that if you got laid off, if COVID happened again, which it's not, but something like that happens, you get sick, you have to take time off work, you have the emergency fund and it's there. Things like if your car breaks down, you need new tires, something that you weren't expecting, you're able to pay for it. And it doesn't mess up your other budgets. So think about that. And then her fourth category was saving. And it might be for something like a vacation, a house, a car, whatever it is, it was a savings account there. And she automatically had her employer separate out. And I know at Orange Theory, we can do this for people. So most employers can. You can put different amounts of money in different funds right from your paycheck. So you don't have to think about it. Or if you don't mind, every time you get paid, you can just transfer money in those accounts. I know for me, this has always been super helpful. It just keeps it straight in my mind. I don't have to do a lot of math and think, can I afford this? What bill is this coming for? Do I have enough for taxes if I buy this? Like it's separated. I know how much is in each account, and I'm able to just make those decisions very easily. It's automated, so it takes the discipline out too. I don't have to think about it. Again, it's already done. My taxes, I don't think about that. It's just something that automatically happens. I can pay those. So, just some different things that if you only have one account and you're listening thinking, yeah, that might work well for me. that you could implement. So just go to the bank, start free accounts, and start there. I really want to take a little bit of time to talk about credit because this is important. I spent 15 years at US Bank and looking at people's credit day to day. And I know some of you are thinking, I know my credit and it's really good. And others of you are thinking, I have no idea what my credit is, or I know it's really bad. How do I make it better? Let me give you some tips and tricks for this. First of all, there's three main credit bureaus: TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And typically now, a lot of times companies will report to all three. Sometimes they'll just report to one. You can get a credit score. Typically, they're around 500 to slightly over 800 are typical credit scores. And if there's a lot of factors that go into your credit score, the bureaus won't give you the exact formula. But what I can tell you is the amount of debt you have definitely plays in. Whether that debt is revolving debt, is what they call credit bureau or credit card debt, or installment loans, installment debt. That's like your house or your car. How much you have and the type of debt really matters. Because if you have 400,000 on credit card, that's significantly different than a $400,000 mortgage. That's an exaggeration there. But you can see credit card debt will typically decrease your score faster. And for us, we have always had the mentality of I use credit every month. I put everything on a credit card, but only as long as we can pay it off every month because it's your highest interest rate. It does affect your credit score, and it's not something that we wanted to pay interest on. So, credit card debt can be a big one. Now, I'm a fan too. I have probably one credit card that I definitely use all of the time. But I have two or three others that one I will give my kids if they need something. Two, maybe it's a place that I shop at a lot. Or three, maybe I got a significant offer. And especially if you're a business owner, you can get these and you spend X amount of dollars and then you get X amount of money back. The latest one I got was $900. I just spent, I think, $6,000 in the first 3 months, and they gave me $900. And we'll do that all day long. Now, it does, how many credit cards you have affects your bureau and your inquiries. How many inquiries? I don't do that often, but probably once a year. After a year, there's typically a fee for the credit card, and I will just cancel it at that point. But it was worth it to me. So when you're thinking about credit, I want you to think about one, pull your credit to see what is your credit score? What's on there right now if you don't know? And then see how much credit card debt do you have versus how much installment debt, like your house and your car, do you have? Because those numbers will pay in or play a factor in this. Also, do you pay your bills on time? Because if you pay your bills on time, the credit bureau likes that and they give you an A for that. If you don't, they keep track of that too. Are you 30 days late, 60 days late, 90 days? Do you have things that have gone to collections? Those are all things that show up on your credit bureau and they will lower your score. A couple of tips that I've got over the years is that the credit bureau really likes if you have a card that you pay off in full each month. So let's say you have two credit cards. One right now, let's say you're carrying a balance. And after this, you're really going to work to pay down that balance, but it has one now. The other one doesn't have a balance. You may want to put a small bill on there. And I would automate this. The bill goes on, the payment goes out automatically from your bill pay. That way, it shows that you had an expense, you paid it in full every single month. And the credit bureau typically likes that. They like to see things paid in full every month. They also really like to see things paid on time. So this is something, again, that you can automate through bill pay, and you want to set it and forget it. So you don't have to have the discipline each month. It's automated that you can go in there and it's just done. You know, if you have 3 bills and they're due on the first, you're going to automate every single one of those. If you do have credit card debt or you have debt that you're really working to pay off, my suggestion to you is make a spreadsheet. Look at how much do you owe, what is the interest rate, and what is the balance on there. And again, this can be emotional and hard because sometimes we don't like to look at those numbers. No, I've been there before of those numbers can be scary. But once we know and we have a plan for it, then it's a whole lot less scary. Because remember, you have your budget and you have your maximizing your income, you're looking at all of your expenses, and you know at the end of the month how much you should have left over. We're going to build that emergency fund because our goal is 3 months in that at least. Now, if you have credit card debt, you're going to want to pay this off typically before you put it in a savings account after you built the emergency fund. That one's important. So let's look. Let's say you have $500 left over at the end of the month. Maybe you put 200 in your emergency fund. The other 300 can go to credit card bills if you have them. There can be 2 ways to do this. One, you look at which one has the highest interest rate. I want to pay that one off first. And if you look from a math perspective, this one probably makes the most sense. You want to get rid of the highest interest rate first. But sometimes I know when you're doing this, you need a win. And so maybe you have some cards with low balances that you just want to get off and get off that debt list. So you may want to pay those off first. But you're taking that money and you're automatically applying it each month. So a couple of tips there to really maximize what your money does for you. Because again, at the end of the day, it's freedom that your money buys. That's what we want to go for. It's not the 12 sweatshirts that you have in your closet or the brand new car. Those things are nice, but freedom is really what we're looking for. And by knowing your numbers, maximizing the income and the budget side, and then really understanding your credit bureau and trying to get that score at the highest level possible, it's going to open doors and it's also going to reduce the amount of interest that you pay. I will tell you when you go to buy a house or a car, somebody with an 800 credit score pays a much lower rate than somebody with a 600 credit score. So it's important that you pay attention to those things. Next week, I'm excited to jump into more of the investing side, and we'll spend some time there. But this week, let's really dive in and look at your numbers. If you have kids or somebody that you know that would benefit from this, please share it. And as always, it would mean the world to me if you would give us a 5-star review for Be the Person podcast. Thanks so much for joining today.